Hey guys, Simon Jones here from It's a Trap, back again like Ridley Scott with a new visual effects breakdown. This time I want to take a look at the shield, which you can see here. Had a few people ask us how he did that, and I think rather than going step by step, which would take quite a while, I'm just going to show you the general gist of how he put it together. It's lots of different layers going on and mixing together to build up the final effect. So let's take a look. Here we are in Hitfilm. Hitfilm was used for all the visual effects. I'm kind of biased towards using that because I actually work at FX Home where we develop it. So kind of convenient, but it's also really powerful, and so far it's been able to do absolutely everything we've wanted it to do, and we're really looking forward to using it on the Arms Race web series, which we're actually going to shoot starting next weekend. So we'll hopefully have some interesting stuff from the set showing you what we're up to. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, sorry about that. Let's get back to the point. Here's the original shot with Tom, our Witcher actor, doing his best impression of stopping a crossbow in flight. As you can see, there's nothing actually happening in this shot other than him looking slightly pained. So the first thing we did is we tracked a few elements in the shot. This track here was simply to get the movement of the camera tracked, so that when we started compositing everything else into the shot, it actually looked like it was there and didn't wobble around too much. So this was simply to get the position and rotation of the shot itself. You can see those 2 points tracking the background. It's important to track the background rather than say anything on Tom, because Tom himself is actually moving. To actually get a kind of stable camera track, you need to track something that's not moving around. In this case it was a couple of vague points in the background there. You can see Hitfilm did a pretty good job of tracking something that is kind of blurry and vague, because there weren't too many distinct points on the shot. Now the other track we did was Tom's hands. You can see at the start, don't bother tracking it here because the effect only kicks in around about here-ish. So here we go, tracking his hands as he's moving around, and that goes all the way through to the end there, at which point the effect has gone again. So yeah, those two tracks, keep everything nice and simple, minimise the amount of hand animation, rotoscoping you need to do. Let's switch back to our other view and take a look at how the effect was built up. So first off, we of course have the arrow. Check out one of our other videos for seeing how we did the arrow in some of the earlier shots when it's being fired. And then here we have the bolt. Did I say arrow? I meant bolt. There's people out there who are going to complain at me for that, but never mind. This is very simple, just a matter of animating it coming in and then stopping in position here. You can see this is where the hand track becomes really useful, because once it's in place here, that bolt is simply staying in place according to the track on the hand. You can see here it's just got a lot of motion blur. It's all done automatically. Then once it's here, we're simply tied on to the hand track, and that's all there is to it. And around about here you can notice that the bolt disappears, and that's the point at which it switches to the disintegration particles. So let's take a quick look at those. We'll turn that on. You can see that just as that disintegrates, we also kick in a particle effect, which is coloured and positioned to look like the bolt falling to pieces. And that just tumbles away there. Nice and simple. Now for the shield itself, I tried out a few techniques. So I tried to do it with a particle simulator and with a few other bits and pieces, and nothing quite worked out, or it was becoming far too complicated. In the end, what I did was started off with a simple plane. That's an email I just got, let's just get rid of that. So yeah, this simple plane, you can see it's just a large square yellow thing, and it was just scaled up so that it starts from nothing and then scales up really quickly just in time for the bolt to arrive. And that again is then tracked onto the hand so that it keeps pace with it, and then it expands and fades away at the end. Obviously that's not the actual look we went for. So how do we turn it into the shield? You can see here first we started off with a circle mask. Turn that on, feathered edge around here, and you have a nice round shape. It's slightly transparent, so we just lowered the opacity a little bit. Then it's just a matter of laying in different effects to get the look you want to go for. With all this kind of stuff, it's just experimental. You keep fiddling around until you get something that you actually want. So first off, we had a clouds effect, and that gives it this nice texture. Clouds is just a really simple way to generate some texture inside the program. Then we use the bulge effect, and you can see that kind of pinches it in here. So rather than bulging out, it pinches it into the middle, and that just gives it a more of a kind of shield type shape. The chrominator effect is an interesting one. It gives it a kind of shimmery liquid metal kind of appearance. It's useful if you're doing T1000 style effects, but in this case you can see it just kind of gives a little bit more texture and interest to the shield that's going on here. and then finally just stuck on a flicker so that it has a little bit of random flickering. Once all those effects are in place, you can see that the shield is pretty much how you want it to be. I think the bulge effect, pinching it into the middle here, is kind of what gives it the best appearance that I'm going for. And then at the end it just expands out like that, and that I think was the bulge being keyframed, so that rather than pinching it, it bursts it out like that at the same time as the entire layer expanding and dissipating. And that's the shield essentially. But that wasn't it. We wanted to add in a bit more kind of detail, because with a lot of these effects you can get it to look okay, and then the more layers, the more detail you add in, little things that people might not even notice, but it just kind of, it helps to add to the realism and stops it from just being a pasted on effect. So one thing is we used the shield that we created here as a displacement layer, so that distorted the background. If we just turn off that shield again, you can see how the distortion is working. So as the shield appears, you get the background behind the shield distorting like this, which again just makes it look like it's a physical thing that's kind of interacting with the background. Once you combine the two together, it works really nicely. It's not something you actively notice, but it looks like the light is interacting with it in a more convincing manner. And then of course we have the flare, because I felt like this wasn't quite looking interesting enough at the start here, so that's just a simple flare we stuck on in the middle. And again, because we track the hands, all of these things are tracked to the same point. You don't have to faff about with anything, it just kind of works. And then the final piece of the puzzle was the additional particle effects, which creates these kind of shimmery dust particles. These only start spawning around about here, so you can see they're starting to come out here already. If we just turn off the shield again, you can kind of see what's going on there, starting to spew out in the middle. They've got a turbulence field on, I believe, which is what gives them the kind of random movement of going all over the place like this, and they're just allowed to spew out and disperse around the shot. And once the rest of the shield disappears, they're allowed to linger, so that it kind of looks like there's a bit of the magic kind of lingering in the air. And I think that is what gives it a particularly nice feel, and they just start to fade out towards the end. And essentially that's it, that's how it's built up. So none of that stuff is particularly complicated, but once you combine them all together, it ends up with a really satisfying effect. Okay, hope this was helpful. We've got one more tutorial for Confrontation at Dawn, which is based on the shockwave right at the end, and we'll be publishing that sometime soon. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope this was of interest. Cheers.